Speech students compete in 16 different MFL events. They fall into 3 broad categories: memorized interpretation, oratorical events, and reading events. In this section, we will tell you about memorized interpretation events.
There are 3 memorized interpretation events: dramatic interpretation, humorous interpretation, and duo interpretation. As you might expect, they must be memorized.
Performers may not use costumes, props, or scripts. Dramatic interp, or DI for short, will be primarily serious in nature, but is allowed to have some funny moments, while humorous interpretation, or HI, will be primarily humorous in nature, but may have some serious sections. In DI and HI, there is only one person performing, but in duo, there are 2 performers.
In duo interpretation, the competitors are not allowed to touch each other or make direct eye contact except in the introduction. The partners do the scene facing the audience as if their partner were standing in front of them. For example, if I were to hand Justine a glass of water, it would look like this.
Hey, Antonia, could I have a glass of water?
Okay.
Gee, thanks. Or if I were to strangle my sister, it might look something like this.
It's important to remember that the characters keep a realistic balance between them and that not one actor overpowers the other.
The competitors are allowed to look at each other as long as it is clear that they are not making direct eye contact.
I like your dress, Justine.
Thanks.
In duo, each partner can play one character, or there can be many characters, and they can each play multiple roles.
In this next clip from Las Hermanas, we see a short section of duo interpretation. Notice how the 2 characters create an environment with their actions and speak to each other without making direct eye contact.
I'll follow her? She must be in a hurry. These tree stumps must be the seats.
I feel like I'm a 7 dwarf. Oh, look! Holly and Molly and Sister Woman Sister. That's what we're here to see.
Performance art field trip.
We just get on the bus and go.
Here's some things to look for as you judge interpretation events. Each character should be well developed. The performer or performers should convey what the character is thinking and feeling through facial expressions, vocal variety, and gestures. You should be taken to the place and time where these characters exist.
Interpretation events fall into 2 categories: those with 1 character and those with multiple characters. This next scene from The Most Humane Way to Kill a Lobster was performed in dramatic interpretation. It has only 1 actor. Notice how the actor makes it clear where she is and what she is doing by her actions. Also notice the tone of how the tone of her voice conveys the mood of the story.
The idea is to cause as little suffering as possible. Yes. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to eat it, but I don't want to torture it. So, you put it in the freezer, alive. It slowly loses consciousness, so when you transfer it to the pot of boiling water, it doesn't feel a thing. You know, I'm not sure how they know this. I'm not sure how they know what the lobster feels in its last moments. With all of its lobster memories flashing around in front of its antennae. I suppose that this is how I felt recently.
When there are multiple characters in a story, the performer will pop between characters, or switch between them very quickly. The transitions between characters should be clear. Each character should suddenly appear before you and should be consistent. Often, actors use different focal points, so you know who is taller and how the different characters are positioned in relation to one another in the scene.
In this next clip from Fat Camp Commandos, notice how the actor transitions from one character to the next, and how she uses focal points so that the physical relationship between characters becomes clear.
So that day, we went to the Burns & Noble giant bookstore, where there's a little coffee area too. We got slices of double chocolate cake. There was a skinny lady sitting nearby, staring at us. She looked angry. Look at you children, you're overweight and you're eating cake. How can you let yourselves get this way? Don't you have any self-control? Don't you have any self-respect? How can you let yourself sit around and eat cake? Lady, you are suffering from a form of insanity. Go away, or my friends and I will be forced to eat you.
Another important criteria for judging interpretation events is whether or not the performance takes you on a journey. There should be a clear beginning, middle, and end to the piece. Each performance should build to a climax. If you come away from the performance wondering what the point was, then the actor may not have effectively created a climax in his or her piece. The climax is the turning point, the place where the main character changes. It is the reason they are telling the story. The next clip is from a humorous interpretation piece called 700 Sundays. Notice how the climax brings resolution to the story.
Guess what they danced to? Sunrise, sun, set! I plucked! I couldn't believe it, Reba. There's my daughter dancing with her husband. I look at Leonard in that bedroom until his face is filling up with blood. His eyes are bulging out of his head. What is it, Daddy? May I have this dance? Now I'm getting all emotional. So they start dancing, and Leonard starts swirling and twirling her around. Because you know Leonard, he's fat. He's so light on his feet. And the sight of them dancing and laughing after all those hard years, it reminds me of how much I love that fat little bald guy who tips 11%. So, I got up and I danced with Olivia. And then I danced with her mother. And then